Yeah, long time no see. I've had a shitload of life stuff go on, so I haven't made a video in forever. But I just wanted to talk just real quick because I'm kind of a fan of one economic YouTuber by the name of Patrick Boyle. And I really like him because he is very honest and strictly an economic expert, although he will dip into the retardation of governments and their involvement in economics, which they always are. And he was hilarious during Biden, of course, because he was pretty honest about how Biden was. But of course, I'm sure his popularity might be going up even more now because Trump's in office. And not everything Trump's doing is necessarily wise, and everything he's doing is risky to try to right the ship. So obviously the comments on his last video are just full of people going trickle down economics, which by the way is not a real model. It's a slur against Reagan's cutting taxation model and cutting regulation model. And it's a model that has been followed by virtually every Republican since, because it is usually a pretty good counter to what Democrats do, which is spend recklessly everywhere. Is it true that the way Republicans usually try to right the ship is to send money at the problem? Yes. And oftentimes, they're the only party you're ever going to see who's going to cut somebody who isn't a billionaire a check to do that. Both Bush and Trump did a lot of economic stimulus shit where people like you and I would actually be getting some of this write off shit, some of this money, some of this return on investment. Because if anybody wants to know who's actually getting their back broken when the economy is shit, it's who have I always said it is, because who is it always? The middle class shrinks. Okay? Nobody's just said, okay, we're going to throw SNAP completely out the window. No one said we're going to throw Medicare completely out the window. No one said we're throwing Social Security and all these other socialist systems that have permanently destroyed the economy since their invention and should have never been done in the first place. Okay? If you're new to the channel, you're going to be one of the only people who haven't heard me say like 30 times. Around 1/3 of the federal budget every year is paying off Social Security. Okay? It's not the military. It's not all the stupid wars we do. It's not all the jet planes. It's not the Air Force. It's none of that shit. Okay? And it's not even foreign aid. We piss about 20 to 25% of all our money into other countries where none of us, rich or poor, well, probably rich actually, depending on the global nature of the economy, may benefit from, but people like you and I never can. Okay, and people like you and I are probably never going to get Social Security because it's virtually bankrupt. It's been borrowed against. Social Security has been treated like a credit union by the government since its invention. Okay, it's broke. It's beyond broke. It's borrowed into the negative. Okay, it's fucked. So, if you're ever wondering why the entire world is just debt and at a deficit, it's spending. Okay, now is it usually cheaper to help a few corporations reinvigorate the economy through being able to not have to shrink their wages because they got a tax cut, or they can introduce new market stuff, new goods, expand their businesses, and hire more people and create more jobs? If you ever want to know how the government creates jobs, they give handouts to capitalists who therefore can afford after said handout, which is, again, from us. The government doesn't have money, doesn't make money. So we pay these corporations to act right. Okay? A lot of people have a problem with that. Okay? But guess what? You can't vote your way out of that system. Trickle down economics is what they all do. Okay? If you think Democrats don't try to affect the economy by fiddle fucking around with subsidies, you are extremely wrong. Okay? You are extremely wrong. This is pretty much what the federal government considers its general business in terms of fucking managing the economy, is to do shit like that. And the other thing is simply to increase the number of dollars in the system. And that is something you absolutely cannot vote for. The Federal Reserve is not even run by the Federal Treasury. The Federal Reserve is a bank, an independent fucking bank. And if you want to know why inflation is a continuous, irreversible problem, it might be because your government is actually owned by an independent fucking bank. That should kind of creep you out a little bit because it's true. So, if you don't know the name of the chairman of the Federal Reserve, you probably don't know what's going on. And to be honest, I don't, because I don't consider it terribly important precisely who is running that thing. It's just, oh, does the Fed still exist? Have we not ended the Fed? Well, I guess it's happening is not happening. So you have to realize then that, in my opinion, what's best for the country is what's best for its backbone. Because not only is the middle class the backbone of who is paying taxes, and again, it's not the poor, it's not all you fucking assholes who are running around burning shit down all the time. You're the people who are still being subsidized by the government. Whether it's right or left, you're getting your food stamps and you're getting your Section 8 housing, okay? And you're getting your public school system, which also, in my opinion, shouldn't exist. Public school system should be privatized, because guess what? Whenever the government gets to spend tens of billions of dollars on something and try to figure out the best way to standardize it and do it well for everybody, guess what the government tends to do? Fail. Okay, the public school system is a complete and utter failure. Nobody learns shit in school. You know you don't. Okay? At best, anybody is actually being educated beyond literacy and basic math skills. And even that is a fucking big ask anymore, because of No Child Left Behind and shit, which was a Republican policy. Beyond that, the public school system is generally useless. You know what the public school system is? It is a nationalized, socialized daycare. Because another thing the government decided to do way back when leftists were, again, in charge at the time, was to basically radically change the entire economy by basically pressuring women into the workforce. Now, a lot of people would say, well, they didn't do that on purpose. That was World War II. That's another can of worms over exactly how on purpose the way World War II turned out was. Okay, there was some shit that was by design there, and especially including America's involvement in the war at all. Okay, that's a conspiracy all on its own, but this is a completely different video. The point is that no one side is your friend, okay? And the correct answer for what should we do with the federal government is, regardless of who's in charge, it should be shrank. Republicans spend way too much, and yes, they favor their rich friends. The Democrats also favor their rich friends and do the subsidy thing in the good old boy game, and they shake hands and do deals because that's what the federal government is, regardless of who's running it. And they spend like they are trying to bankrupt this country and kill us all. Okay? If anybody wants to know why I am kind of considered pro-Republican or right-wing or whatever, is because one of these two enemies of the country is clearly, significantly more dangerous and more of an immediate threat than the other, and that is leftists and retard socialists who think that the best way to fix this problem is to drastically increase the size of this Leviathan mafia, this criminal gang that is the federal government, to spend more. And that the answer isn't that this is a monster that should be slain. This is a dragon that should be fucking speared through the heart, the federal government, and destroyed and then remade into something much more efficient and less evil and less sinister, and not this giant bloated monster that eats mostly to justify its own existence, not to perform a service for the rich or the poor, honestly. So you need to realize that it's spending more and drastically increasing government oversight regulation and increasing all these redundant bureaus of basically, because have you seen The Sopranos? What did most of the Sopranos crew do all day? They gave themselves a paid job on a construction site, called themselves construction union workers, and then sat around in lawn chairs and drank beer and watched employees actually work. And then they just cut themselves in and sat there. That's the federal government, pretty much most of it, okay? Useless, redundant, just rotting trash, just a waste, a landfill for your effort and toil. Because money isn't supposed to be some kind of speculative fucking toy to try to, or a poker chip for Wall Street, the Wall Street casino, okay? Money is supposed to be a representation of labor or property value, okay? It is a form of promissory note, a promise of trade. I am trading labor. I am trading a representation of my goods, a representation of the value of my business, okay? Now, a dollar is just a number being balanced on a sheet by bankers, okay? And usually their idea of what to do with that number is to make more of it and more of it and more of it and more of it. Not out of labor, not out of value, not out of industry or wealth or material possession or gold or silver or anything, but just to keep the system, which if it wasn't supported by basically a scam, a complete fake scam, we would all be bankrupt. China, Russia, us, all of us. It's all a shell game, okay? And increasing the majesty and grandeur and power of the casino, which is literally just a giant building that is just an emperor with no clothes, okay? There's all the tables and shit, and there's all these chips and shit, but actually the actual money and shit is nowhere. We're all just playing with these fucking chips, and once everybody figures out these chips are worthless, it's over. Okay, I'm no economic expert, but that's what I see, okay? And the only thing I think I'm ever wrong about is how fast this fucking mistake happens, okay? And if anything, oh, you right-wing fascist Nazi or whatever, you must have been happy when Trump got elected. Honestly, no, that 2024, I didn't vote for Trump, okay? I thought about it, and then I thought about voting for Biden, and then I just didn't vote, okay? And I don't know if I'm going to be voting again for a while. I used to kind of do that for my own conscience, and in the hope that usually the way I would describe it to people is my participation in voting and shit is in the vain hope that my taxes will go down. I expect no other good to come of this process, and that I'm usually right about. That's a pretty easy prediction to make. And I think whether you're a lefty or a righty and how invested you are in politics and whether you've been watching CNN or Fox, what kind of idea you have of right versus left in American politics and Republican versus Democrat, it may take you some time to realize that entire thing is fake. It's like pro wrestling or football. Okay, yeah, these guys are really going at it and shit, but at the end of the day, they're all just employees of the same union, the NFLPA, or in this case, no union whatsoever with pro wrestlers. You're all just independent contractors being used and hopefully getting paid your worth before your time is up. You know, this is kind of where you're at, okay? You are not even a cog in a machine, and you're not even a serf. You yourself are a number on a sheet, okay? A lot of people are worried about, oh, how come all these people are pumping Somalians and Mexicans and South Americans and Syrian refugees and Indian refugees and Pakistani refugees? Why are all these refugees getting pumped in? It must be because we're the good guys and we take care of refugees, and us as the West, we have the wealth and power and generosity and righteousness to take care of these people. Has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. We have a bunch of experts in charge of apparently every Western government who are convinced that the only thing that really matters about the citizenry is how many of them there are. There has to be this many spenders, this has to be this many consumers, and this many workers, or our entire system, as we're looking at it, falls apart. Now, are we going to concern ourselves with skilled labor? Or are we going to concern ourselves with these guys being properly educated in our shitty public school system and are able to communicate and perform as much as natives? Are natural citizens? Are any of these questions asked? Nope. Is it asked exactly how bad of a strain these people are on the welfare system, the financial system, and on the economy in the meantime? Nope, we don't care about that. We'll print more pounds sterling, we'll print more euros, we'll print more dollars, it doesn't matter. But our models say no matter what, there has to be this many people or it doesn't work. And a sane person would ask, what kind of people? Doesn't figure into it. They need human replacement rates. Japan, not enough people being born. America, not enough people being born. The UK, not enough people being born. And you know why? Because the middle-class taxpayer, who is the backbone of the economy, cannot afford the cost and burden of children, period. And they go, that's fine. We don't care if you, the actual citizen, you, the actual worker, you, the person we built this country on, you, the reason why everything works. We don't need you. We need a Somalian who doesn't speak English, who can't read, who doesn't know it's not okay to rape women, children, dogs, animals, doesn't matter, is in all intents and purposes a literal savage, a literal barbarian, okay, literally can't function, is nothing but a drain. And the people in charge say, nope, that's a human body fixing the replacement rate problem. It's all fine. And guess who is okay with that? The right wing and the left. There's not even one party who's got a problem with the immigration system. There's just a couple of Republican fucking politicians, period, who have a problem with that system. Everyone else is like, you're racist. Hey, do these people get forcibly re-educated and trained to be an American or trained to be a Briton, Anglo, trained to function in Germany or France? Nope. We're just going to set loose this savage rapist on everybody. And guess what? Problem solved. Replacement rate economic problem solved. Guys like Patrick Boyle will never run out of content. There's always going to be something really stupid that the government is doing that it shouldn't be doing. And it doesn't matter whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. And even if I probably look pretty far right-wing to me, neither one of those is a legitimate, coherent idea, party platform, anything. These people, Republicans and Democrats, disagree on about 5 or 6 issues total. And then they vote in almost unison on everything else that actually matters, that actually costs money. And they make sure the buddies in the media are pretty quiet about those votes that go 500 yay, okay? And they're, however many senators there are now, but I was talking about the House. It doesn't matter, okay? Whether it's every single guy, 50 people say yay or 100 people say yay. That's 100, I'm pretty sure, yeah. So it doesn't matter if 100 people say yay. Okay, nobody wants to hear about that. They want to hear about that 49-51 vote that just went down where one Democrat fucked their party or one Republican fucked their party, so that one thing went one party's way, not the other, and then one party cheers and the other party jeers. They don't understand that most of the time these people are in general agreement about the shit that matters. Foreign aid, big budget spending bills that tend to earmark most of the money for overseas shit that doesn't benefit us. Not even benefit us by military spending overseas. It benefits some asshole in Africa, or some asshole in Ukraine, or some asshole in Iran, or some asshole in Israel, or that's where a lot of the money does go, okay? And around 15% does go to the military, and that's an astronomical number. So when you hear 30% goes to Social Security and you look at what the military's doing, you're like, where the fuck does all that money go? Good question, asshole. Good question. You should ask it more and more and more. Where's the Social Security money? Where's 30% of the federal budget every year? Asshole. Nobody asks. And you know why? Because the media didn't train you to. Because the stupid talking head, who if they're on YouTube or Twitch, be it, your Hassan Pikers, your whatever the fucks. Guess what those guys are? Guess what those guys are paid mouthpieces. They're shills. And guess who's most of your Republican friends? Your quarterings and your who the fuck else do you retards even watch anymore? Because I don't watch right-wing news on YouTube at all. I don't. Because it's pointless as well, because those guys are grifters. They're just telling you want to hear about Star Wars and Disney, so you give them more money. And I find that subject fascinating, or at least I used to, when those subjects were new 10 fucking years ago. I no longer care about Disney, okay? I only care of when is Disney going bankrupt and where is Disney getting their money to still run all this shit, okay? That's a good question. And then it's sad that I haven't looked into the answer yet. Maybe out of lack of time in my new house and shit, my new job and shit going on is crazy. And maybe because I honestly won't learn anything too much extra over, hey, if Disney is losing on their parks and losing on their merchandise and losing on their money, or excuse me, on their movie and all that, and they're losing money everywhere, how are they still acquiring things? That I can answer real quick, and this could be its own video, but I'm just going to do 2 minutes on this, okay? Disney has been broke pretty much since the late 90s. The way Disney has kept flying is they have, instead of creating new IPs, instead of improving what they have, instead of going back to the drawing board, they have been acquiring things. Oh, we're going broke in the 90s? Buy ABC. Oh, we're going broke, buy CNN. Or I forget, not CNN. Oh, ESPN. They own ESPN, okay? They own Hulu, okay? They own Marvel, okay? None of these things are like what Disney was doing 30 years ago. If they can't make money, they will purchase something that is making money. And if you are wondering why so many big corporations are going to shit, okay, it's because imagine you have giant corporation that owns a zillion brands. Now imagine a smaller company that has an ever so slightly higher, it's not market cap, but it basically has the capital, even though they're a much smaller company. And even though they actually overall are worth significantly less, they have the free capital to come over here and buy this company. And now they go from this company to this fucking company, okay? A family member of mine worked for a business called Jarden Consumer Solutions, who owns a shitload of appliances, a lot of shit that's on your kitchen counter, like Oster or Mr. Coffee, okay? They own that shit, as well as virtually everything you've ever taken out camping, okay? They, not like vehicles, but shit like lanterns, Coleman, Green Mountain and shit. And a lot of coffee shit. They own all that, okay? Then here comes a company called Newell, which is basically the big org, and their biggest chunk is not all these appliances. Their biggest business is not Mr. Coffee or Oster or a huge or Sunbeam or this huge fleet of shit. Guess what Newell's big thing is? Rubbermaid. They make Tupperware. They make Tupperware. They make Tupperware. They make Tupperware. They fucking make Tupperware. They acquired Jarden and fucked it really goddamn hard because they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They didn't own all the factories that Jarden did. They didn't have all the brands that Jarden did. Their CEOs and shit had never worked with the products that Jarden made. Why is that a thing? Why is that not just a thing? Why is that the norm? If you're wondering why everyone's incompetent, is because a bunch of people with some free money bought a bunch of people whose money is tied up in their shit and they don't actually have a whole bunch of overhead to spend acquiring or to not be acquired. And they get acquired by some asshole who is not prepared to handle their shit. And then they fuck it up over and over and over and over and over and over. It sounds kind of familiar now that I've described it to you. Yeah, you have no idea what's going on. This is the tippiest, tip, pointiest little piece of ice on the top of the iceberg. You're not even looking at what's above the water, asshole, let alone the monster underneath. You just don't know what you're talking about. And you know what's sad? I don't know what I'm talking about. I just know so fucking much more than what seems like everybody. I'm just telling you that it's actually pretty simple. It's very much like that IQ bell curve meme. You got some retards over here saying they're all in it together, and they're just playing us. And then you got someone else here who's got a wall of text you can't even read explaining just how that retard and the low IQ spectrum is right. And then the middle, which is fucking 80% of everybody, trust the government. But the blue government better than the red government. You're fucking stupid. And if you think that sounds libertarian, no, there should be a government. I do not believe all you retards can run this shit, okay, with nobody looking after you, with nobody pointing a gun at you and saying, don't steal that. Okay, don't hurt that person. Don't touch them kids. If there's nobody out here watching you, you will fuck up. I know you, okay? You're going to do bad shit. You need teacher to tell you no and slap your wrist and put you in the corner. That always has to happen, okay? But what is the government now is not a government or a framework to run a country. It's a mafia. It's very much like The Sopranos. And they are about as competent, insane, and rational, and well put together people as The Sopranos. Okay? And they probably occasionally kill people like The Sopranos. They do really bad deals. They fuck each other over, and they gamble. And their egos do play into where only common sense and dollars and cents should play into things. It's just the way it is. Anyway, 30 minutes is way more time than I really have to waste on this today. I actually have to do some shit. But I knew that if I sat down and talked to you, this was going to be no 8-minute video. It's been too long. And hopefully there'll be a little bit more of this. I won't be just gone forever. But yeah, I knew over last year that I was just going to be talking mostly to my audience, which I like, but unfortunately, I was getting more and more having fun talking about products or games or movies or books or concepts more than government, because I feel like I'm making the same 30-minute video every year about 5 times a year, and I don't enjoy it, and I feel like I'm wasting your time doing it. But it doesn't hurt to be reminded of these facts every once in a while, because even people who are a little bit more aware of the problem need to be reminded not to pick up a new fell for it again award and get, absolutely turned into another soy jack overthinking. And that anything's going to improve from the inside of the system. Do I like a lot of the stuff Trump's doing? Yes. Do I think a lot of the stuff he's doing is dangerous and I don't know if it's going to work or not? Yes. Do I think a lot of the stuff he's doing is stupid? Yes. Do I think he's the best president of the past 100 years? Yes. Do I think that's saying a lot? No. So, don't be a mark. You should know that leftists always lie 100% of the time without exception. And your government isn't right versus left. It's left versus psychotic left. There is nobody out there trying to shrink the dragon, feed it less, perhaps, in my wildest dreams, even slay it and destroy it and unmake it. That's what I want. Do you think I'm going to vote for somebody who's going to blow up Congress? That's not the way the system works, And I meant that metaphorically, Jesus Christ, FBI. I mean literally just unmake including, by the way, you. You're a secret illegal police force. FBI, you shouldn't exist. You're part of the problem. So anyway, that's enough.